The world awoke to stunning news. U.S. forces have seized Caracas, Venezuela's capital. In a rapid operation, U.S. Special Forces took control of the Miraflores presidential palace and captured President Nicolas Maduro. The White House confirmed the action, calling it necessary to restore stability and democracy. The city remains tense, but U.S. forces report little resistance from the Venezuelan military. The mission, dubbed Operation Liberty Strike, aimed to apprehend Maduro, who faces long-standing U.S. charges. This marks a dramatic escalation in U.S. foreign policy, moving from sanctions to direct military intervention. For years, the U.S. accused Maduro of drug trafficking and human rights abuses, but he held onto power despite crippling sanctions. Now, the capture of a sitting head of state by a foreign power has shocked the world. The United Nations Security Council has called an emergency meeting, and world leaders are scrambling to respond. Questions swirl about international law, sovereignty, and the global balance of power. How will China and Russia react to this bold U.S. move? The implications reach far beyond Venezuela, touching on other global flashpoints, especially the tense standoff over Taiwan. The world is watching as a new and uncertain chapter in global affairs begins. The stage is set for a major shift in international relations. The U.S. government has laid out its case for Operation Liberty Strike. Officials cite legal grounds. Maduro has faced U.S. indictments for narco-terrorism and corruption since 2020. The White House claims all diplomatic avenues were exhausted, and Maduro's regime posed a direct threat to U.S. and regional security. Venezuela's vast oil reserves are another factor. A stable government could restore oil production and lower global energy prices. Critics argue U.S. energy interests are a driving motive despite official statements. The operation was designed as a swift, targeted strike to avoid a prolonged conflict and minimize civilian harm. The focus: capture Maduro and his inner circle, not wage a full-scale war. This approach signals a new model for U.S. intervention: limited, precise, and politically focused. Humanitarian concerns also played a role. Venezuela's collapse under Maduro led to hyperinflation, shortages, and a refugee crisis. The U.S. claims a responsibility to protect Venezuelans and end their suffering. But the world is watching to see if this justification holds up. The intervention tests the boundaries of humanitarian arguments on the world stage. Is this a new standard for military action or a cover for old-fashioned power politics? The answer will shape future interventions. The world's response to Maduro's capture is sharply divided. U.S. allies like Colombia and Brazil cautiously support the move, hoping for regional stability. Others, including Mexico and Argentina, condemn it as a violation of international law and a return to interventionism. China and Russia have issued strong condemnations, calling the U.S. action aggression and a breach of the UN Charter. Both nations have deep interests in Venezuela and see this as a direct challenge. The UN Security Council's emergency meeting exposed deep rifts. No joint statement was reached. The U.S. defended its actions as a last resort. Russia and China accused it of imperialism. European nations took a measured stance, urging restraint and a peaceful transition, but stopping short of outright support or condemnation. Even close U.S. allies are uneasy with this kind of unilateral military intervention. The diplomatic fallout is just beginning, with global norms and alliances under strain. The world is left to debate. Is this a necessary intervention or a dangerous precedent? The answers will shape the next era of international relations. The shockwaves from Caracas are being felt in every major capital. The rules of global engagement may be changing before our eyes. The U.S. action in Venezuela sets a bold new precedent. It signals that a major power can remove a foreign leader based on its own laws and interests, challenging the core principle of state sovereignty. This could inspire other powers to justify interventions in their own neighborhoods. The operation blurs the line between humanitarian intervention and aggression, creating a dangerous gray area. The U.S. acted without UN approval, bypassing established international norms. This move raises the stakes in global power competition, especially in a multipolar world. The international community now faces a critical question: when, if ever, is it acceptable to forcibly remove another country's leader? The answer will define the future of global order. The world must now grapple with the consequences of this new rulebook. Venezuela and Taiwan, two very different places, but both at the heart of superpower rivalries. Venezuela sits in the U.S. sphere of influence. Taiwan is central to China's. The U.S. intervention in Venezuela echoes the Monroe Doctrine, reasserting American dominance in its region. The message: the U.S. won't tolerate rivals gaining a foothold in its backyard. China's view of Taiwan is even more intense. Beijing sees it as a breakaway province, not just a strategic asset. U.S. support for Taiwan is seen by China as foreign interference, just as the U.S. saw Chinese and Russian support for Maduro. The situations mirror each other, both are power struggles over regional control. But there's a key difference. China claims sovereignty over Taiwan, making the stakes far higher. For Beijing, Taiwan is about national unity. For the U.S., Venezuela is about influence and security. A Chinese move on Taiwan would be about reunification, not just regime change. This makes the Taiwan issue far more explosive. The parallels are striking, but the risks are even greater. Understanding these differences is crucial to grasping the stakes. The US and China project power in very different ways. The US has unmatched global military reach, as shown in Venezuela, deploying forces thousands of miles away to achieve political goals. China's military focus is regional, centered on the first island chain in Taiwan. China's strategy is to keep US forces at bay near its coast, investing in missiles, submarines, and cyber warfare. Economically, the US wields sanctions and financial pressure. China uses trade, investment, and infrastructure to build influence. The Venezuela operation exposed the limits of China's and Russia's power. They couldn't stop the US in its own hemisphere. The world is more multipolar, but the US still holds decisive military advantages in key regions. China's ability to project force far from home remains limited, shaping its approach to Taiwan. The contrast in strategies will define future confrontations. The US punishes, China entices. Both seek dominance, but their tools and reach differ. The lessons from Venezuela will inform Beijing's next moves. The balance of power is shifting but not yet settled. Beijing is watching the US intervention in Venezuela closely. Chinese leaders will study the operation and global reaction for lessons on Taiwan. The US showed it's willing to use force for its interests, even without UN backing. This could make China more cautious. Or, China might see US unilateralism as hypocrisy, justifying its own actions in its sphere. The key difference: Venezuela's military offered little resistance, but Taiwan's defenses are strong, and US support is likely. Any move on Taiwan would risk direct conflict with the US, with far higher costs. The lesson for China's speed and overwhelming force would be essential if it ever acted. Beijing may accelerate military modernization to deter US intervention. The world could face a new era of rapid, decisive actions, where facts on the ground outpace diplomacy. The stakes for Taiwan are now even higher. The US action in Venezuela could push the world in several directions. One path: a return to Cold War-style blocs, with the US and China each dominating their regions and smaller countries forced to choose sides. Another: escalating great power competition, where military interventions become more common and international law erodes. This could spark arms races and regional conflicts, with flashpoints like Taiwan and the South China Sea. A third, more hopeful path: renewed commitment to diplomacy and international rules, with leaders realizing the dangers of unilateral action. The likely future is a mix: rising tensions, but also ongoing diplomatic efforts to avoid catastrophe. The choices made in Washington, Beijing, and Moscow will determine which path prevails. The stakes have never been higher. The world stands at a crossroads. The next moves will shape global stability for years to come. The capture of Maduro is a turning point in global politics. The US has shown it will use military power to enforce its will, even without broad support. This challenges the long-standing principle of national sovereignty and creates uncertainty for many nations. Weaker states now wonder if they could be next if they cross a major power. The US-China rivalry is entering a new, riskier phase, with Taiwan at the center of strategic calculations. The Venezuela operation may set a precedent, making future conflicts more likely. The world is more unpredictable, and the rule-based order feels weaker. Leaders everywhere must navigate this new reality with caution. The challenge: avoid catastrophic conflict in an era of raw, great power competition. The next chapter in history has begun, uncertain, unstable, and defined by bold moves.